Okay, awesome. So it is recording. So what we're going to be talking about today, so I have a couple items on our agenda. So first thing we're going to talk about is how to save in essence. So kind of talking about some strategies to start saving your money to purchase items that you may need before coming to KU. I'm not going to be talking about any and all strategies, just some things that can be helpful to have in your back pocket if you need some help with knowing how to save effectively. Next thing we're going to be talking about is banking information. So kind of discussing like the ins and outs of what banking looks like, discuss the differences between a bank and a credit union, some fees that banks charge that is important to be aware of, and just things about like how to access money when you're coming to KU. Something I briefly mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about on-campus positions, talking about the benefits of these on-campus opportunities to gain additional financial resources as you're going through your schooling. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about some last minute helpful tips and some office department resources that are available to you while you're at KU. So just to kind of wrap us up. So first things first, we're going to be talking about is how to save. So when it comes to purchasing items that you may need when coming here, I think there are three important things you really want to make sure you're aware of to be proactive when you're saving your money. First thing you want to make sure is how important or essential the item is that you may need. How expensive it will be the second one. And then lastly is how long it may take you to purchase said item. So at the bottom of the slide, I put an example. So if you realize an item will be very important and it'll take a little bit longer to purchase because it's a little bit more expensive, making sure you start saving earlier on the earlier end to make sure you have it before the school starts is really, really important. So making sure you're aware of the different items that you may need for coming to KU, knowing how important that item may be, how expensive it will be, and how long it will take you to save are really important factors to make sure you're being proactive with your saving structure. So something to kind of help along the lines of like time management, especially when purchasing and saving your items, is kind of thinking of things on a matrix of importance / urgency of your items. And so this is from, oh my gosh, it's an author. He wrote, oh my gosh, I forget what the book was called, but it's the Highly Effective Leaders. I think that's what it's called. I'm so sorry if I'm missing the title. But he talked about a time management matrix that's really helpful to use. So basically breaks things down into 4 different quadrants. So it talks about something being, urgent, not urgent, important, and not important. And so when it comes to an item that you may need to save up for that is very urgent and important, that's probably something that you want to have on your top priority, that you're making sure you're saving up earlier and, putting that money away so you have it before for the start of schooling. But if you have something that maybe is like not as urgent or not as important, maybe that's something that can wait a little bit later, that you may not need to save as much well in advance. So a couple of examples of items that may be urgent and important. Maybe you need a new laptop for school. That may be something that you may cost a little bit more, especially laptops aren't cheap. And that may be a little bit more urgent because you may want to have it right before classes start so you can have it set up. So it may be a little bit more urgent, and it may be very important because it may be something that you need that is essential to your classes. And so that's maybe something you start saving up for a little bit ahead of time. Something that may be not as urgent or important are things like, decorations. I think with purchasing decorations for your apartment or for your residence hall room, that may be something that you could do like as you are starting to live there, to kind of see like what your space looks like, adapting to your space. And so those may be little odd and ends items that maybe not that expensive and may not take that long to save up for. So that may be something a little bit lower on your saving priority. So this is just something you can utilize to kind of help you kind of manage your time and be proactive with saving for different items of different urgency and importance.
And it helps you think ahead too. So something that might be, say, important but not urgent, might be like a winter coat. You're coming here in August, you're not at all thinking about that at that time, but it will be important later. And depending on the quality of winter coat, that might be something you need to save for. So that might be an example of something that would fall in one of those other types of quadrants.
Yeah, I think thank you for sharing that. I didn't think of that either, especially because we have different seasons here. And sometimes it gets very brutally cold. So making sure you're being proactive with those types of purchases as well can be really important. So just as much as kind of layering the items that you may need to purchase and being proactive with your saving structure, I think it's also important to just be proactive, before the semester starts, but also well into the semester. And so something that can be helpful is kind of building a budget. And so the really great thing about a budget is it kind of helps you catalog your expenses that you may have, track your income that's coming in or the money you may be receiving from your family or from scholarships. Just kind of being able to see like the income that's coming in for you, but also the expenses that you may need to pay for. And then also it allows you to be very intentional in another way of kind of putting smaller amounts of money away to put into a savings for future purchases that you may need. So you want to make sure you're creating a budget that can satisfy all and cover all of your expenses, and make sure you're saving up for any unexpected expenses that may come along the way during the semester. Because there may be instances where things, come up. As much as we plan for things, it can be proactive. Things may happen. So for instance, I have a car on campus, and during the winter time, so kind of pulling back to, being cold out, my battery completely died on me in my car. But thankfully I kind of saved up small bits of money into like a little savings account that I had. And I wasn't having to worry about spending money on a new car battery. So making sure your budgeting can be helpful for all of your expenses that you may be incurring month to month, but also just in case if any of those unexpected expenses come along the way, you're ready and prepared for those as well. So I kind of created a sample budget. This is a sample. This may include some of the expenses or some expenses that you may not have to worry about. So I just wanted to show you kind of like what this could look like. This is not the end all be all of a budget. You know what works best for you. So making sure that your budget is, tracks those expenses, tracks your income, but also can track your savings as well in a way that is effective for you is very important. So this is just something that works for me. So figuring out what budgeting kind of looks like for you and what works effectively for you is really, really important. And so, I listed like revenue from a part-time position because you may want to pursue a part-time position at KU. And that's something we're going to be talking about in a little bit. Tracks all expenses like, may have rent, phone bill, groceries, may want to satisfy for some like social engagement, potentially with friends, some school expenses, especially with like textbooks, notebooks, binders, things like that. Just making sure you're budgeting for that as well can be really important. And then thinking about like what money you're saving. So how much are you going to save? Like, 30% of the money that you have left over, 20%. What are you going to be able to save that can be helpful to put in your savings for any unexpected expenses or expenses that you may need to cover along the way. So,
and you also did a very good job of doing more subtle things in here. So like your car insurance, you've only got that coming out, every couple of months. Depending on what type of environment you grew up in, if your parents paid the car insurance every single month, they were probably paying more for insurance overall. But it can also be really daunting to save up and only pay your car insurance twice a year or once a year, even if you know that it can save you a couple $100s a year in the long run. So if you're taking over, your own car insurance now that you're coming to college, that's a question to ask when you're going to get that insurance set up is, what's the payment structure? And then look at how much you're paying annually and how you can divide that up to save and pay in smaller increments that'll give you the best deal.
Yeah, especially, I think that's a really good point, especially with those expenses that aren't every single month that you may want to take a little bit more intentional approach with planning and making sure you have enough money aside to pay for those expenses, especially like car insurance. So thank you for sharing, Desiree. I really appreciate that. That's kind of the last kind of section on like how to save. Are there any questions about like budgeting, how you can start prioritize saving for purchases that you may need before coming to KU, or just any questions at all before we kind of go into the next section? Okay, so we're going to start going on to talking about banking information. So, just as much as it's important to set up a budget, it's also important to think about how you're going to be accessing your money, and managing your finances can be really important going through the semester. And so I think it's important to think about if you want to continue using your existing banking provider or set up a new bank account with a local bank at local in the Lawrence area. So I kind of covered both bases. So if you're using your existing banking provider, a really great, easy way is to access your funds or pay your bills through like an online or mobile banking platform that's offered through your banking provider. I know like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and a couple others have different ways where you can access your banking information through your laptop, through your phone. And it can really be helpful in transferring funds to pay for tuition, for any bills that you need to pay for, or just any like other expenses kind of directly from your phone. So the convenience of being able to track your spending, track your bills directly from your phone or through an online format can be really great, making sure you're staying on top of those things. And so, like I said, too, it's really great to be able to monitor your accounts and track your money that you've spent and also saved over time to make sure you're being very proactive and intentional with your saving, but just where your money is going to can be really important. So this is if you're using your existing banking provider or if you're going to be getting a new banking provider once you come to Lawrence. So just something to consider, because very convenient using mobile banking.
Also, just a quick tip, if you're keeping your own provider, you will want to let them know if you're coming to college in a different state, because they might flag your transactions, your first couple ones in Kansas, as fraudulent or not let them go through. So even if you want to keep your address of record as your home address in another state, so if a debit card needs to get sent to you, it'll go to your home address instead of your Lawrence address. You'll still want to give them that information so they can put a note on your account. And if you want to update your information, so any replacement debit cards or statements or things like that come to your Lawrence address, that's a good thing to do before you leave town as well.
Yes, that is something I forgot to mention. So thank you. Yeah. So kind of some personal anecdote. When I first came to Lawrence, I started using my credit card, and I was getting alerts through my mobile banking, which I think is really nice, because it also alerts you if there's any suspicious activity or transactions. But it was me buying stuff at Walmart. So I did not call them, but definitely make sure to call them, let them know when you're coming to Lawrence, so it's not flagged as suspicious activity. So thank you, Desiree, for that tidbit. So if you're thinking about changing banks to a more local Lawrence bank, when you're opening an account, if it's a checking or savings account with another financial institution, I think it's important to know the difference between a bank and a credit union, because sometimes those can be misconstrued for the other, and they're very two distinct financial entities that kind of operate in different ways and kind of have different pros and cons from one another. So a bank is a for-profit financial institution that's owned by investors. So the banks make a profit for its investors. So banks offer personal and commercialized banking products like business credit cards and loans, and savings and different investment opportunities. Whereas a credit union is a nonprofit financial institution owned by its members that are part of the credit union. So a credit union focuses on keeping fees low for its members. So making sure the fees are low, interest rates on savings accounts are high, and then making sure interest rates on loans are low. So kind of managing and making sure things are suitable for its members. So I kind of included this diagram too to kind of talk about the differences between what a bank looks like and a credit union. So banks have more like branches and ATMs nationwide, whereas credit unions offer a little bit less options in commercial banking. Like I said, credit unions have a little bit more lower fees and better interest rates on loans and savings accounts, whereas banks are a little bit stricter on the rules and less flexibility with customer service. So there's pros and cons to either one. Just knowing what it is and what they're offering is really important before opening an account with either a bank or a credit union.
And credit unions, I will also say, have different rules about who can be a member of the credit union. Sometimes it's tied to your profession, and then other times it might be tied to your local living area. So if you are a resident of a particular state or county or whatever that credit union happens to be, so there might be some restrictions on who can and cannot be a member of a specific credit union.
Yeah, and I think those are really beneficial things to kind of factor when you're making your decision. And so when it comes to if you want to open a bank in the area, I kind of listed some local banking options. So we have Central Bank, US Bank, Bank of America, Capital Federal Bank, and First State Bank and Trust. I know there's a couple other banks that are local in the area. I just wanted to kind of highlight like the top 5 that I was noticing that are very local and relatively close to KU. But there are other options that you can bank at if you are when you are coming to Lawrence. So, but here are just a couple. So whether you're setting up a new bank account or you're going to be banking through your original banking provider, I think there are a couple fees and things to make sure you're aware of when you are banking, especially when you're using ATMs, because there are some things called ATM fees. So this is normally a fee that's charged by your bank to an individual who uses an ATM from a bank that you're not a member of. And so there's a couple of ATMs that are on campus. And so if you're not a member of said bank, you may be charged an ATM fee. So just being aware of, what ATMs are covered by your particular bank, or if your bank may reimburse you for using an outside ATM, being aware of that can be very important. So you may want to check about that with your current banking provider if they do cover or reimburse you for ATM fees. And then also just seeing what ATMs offer free ATM transactions through your bank, I think is just as important. So.
Yeah, on campus in the Kansas Union at the end of Jayhawk Boulevard, there's a little alcove that has several different ATMs. So if your bank is one of those bigger banks like US Bank, that would be a place to go and check and see if those ATMs are one of your bank's ATMs. Also, there are other ways to get cash back that don't require an ATM, like going to a Dillon's, which might have been called a Kroger if you're not from this area, or Target, and requesting cash back over the amount that you spent. Just another way to get that cash and avoid the ATM fees if you can't find an ATM that would not charge you money.
Yeah, especially getting cash back from those retailers is a really nice, easy way where you don't have to go out of your way to find an ATM or a bank per se. So another thing to be aware of too are things called overdraft fees. So basically what an overdraft is when there isn't enough money in your account to cover a transaction, but your bank allows the transaction to go through anyways. And so it's basically an extension of your line of credit. And so when your account reaches 0, and normally you're charged a fee for overdrafting on your account. And so my biggest piece of advice is you want to make sure you have enough money in your account if it's a savings account or checking account where you don't overdraft on your account. You don't let your account reach zero and they charge you a fee because you overdrafted your account. So make sure you're regularly checking how much money you have in your account, and the money that you do have in your account is able to cover the transactions that you need it to cover. Because overdraft fees can sometimes be very expensive. So
Yes,
just don't want that to
definitely.
happen to y'all. So make sure regularly tracking, making sure you know the money that you have in your account, and making sure it can cover any and all transactions that you may be incurring in the near future.
And this might be a touch in the weeds. Some banks, like I bank with US Bank, and they allow you to set it up such that if you have a savings account and a checking account with them, rather than getting charged, say, the $40 overdraft fee, you're charged a $15 transfer of funds fee, and it will default to pulling the money from your savings account to cover what would have overdrawn you on your checking account. So that's something that you can kind of look into in the banking structure. And that's a good type of question to ask. How does this institution handle overdraft fees? Because there might be ways to lessen that impact.
Yes. And each bank operates differently. So knowing kind of the specifics of what your particular bank does, especially when it comes to these fees, can be really important. So kind of the last thing too that I wanted to consider are maintenance fees. So maintenance fees are normally charged to your account through a monthly basis for having a checking account with a bank. So not every bank charges maintenance fees, or they may not apply to every type of account through a bank. So making sure you're aware of, if your accounts are charged a maintenance fee monthly, it's just something to be aware of, especially with like student accounts. Sometimes they waive that maintenance fee because you're a student and, operating with very limited funds. So asking your bank and seeing like, is there a maintenance fee that's on my checking or my savings account? And if so, how much is it monthly? Just so you're aware of that too, because sometimes you may be getting charged a fee and it's like, what is this for? So just being aware of that can be really important as well.
And there might be things you can do to mitigate that fee as well. So again, with US Bank, there is a $14.95 charge for having a checking account, but by signing up for electronic statements, by doing X number of debit card transactions a month, and one or two other just typical banking things that you do, they waive that fee. And so then you see that on your statement as negative 14.25, and then immediately plus 14.95.25, whatever it is. So you can catch that and then question it if they charge it but don't refund it to you.
Yeah. So definitely, talking with your banking provider of what fees are, potentially going to incur on your account, I think are important, or the ways you can mitigate them too. Because there are sometimes different ways where you can, be proactive. So that's kind of the last remaining parts of banking information. I know that's probably the most dry piece of information, but I think it's really important for y'all to be aware of the different things that are in the banking universe. Any questions with banking information that y'all have? Okay, so we're going to continue right along. So the next thing I want to talk about is on-campus positions. You may want to get a part-time job, and I think a really great way to gain experience, but also being able to work while you're going to classes during the academic year is through on-campus student positions. So there are a variety of different benefits to taking part in an on-campus student position. One of them is that different departments and resources that operate on campus that hire student workers are very cognizant that you are a student at KU and you're taking classes. And so they're flexible with your academic schedule and being able to work around your work schedule around your academic schedule. Whereas if you go to somewhere off campus, they may not be as flexible with your academic schedule. So that's something that's a really nice thing that a lot of different departments and resources on campus, if you're working for them, they'll be able to work around your academic schedule. These positions provide a lot of great opportunities for personal and professional development, understanding about how to work in an academic department or work for a resource at KU, developing those interpersonal relationships and connections, and know how to work well with others, communicate effectively. There's a lot of really great skills that you'll be able to gain while here at KU that you can transfer to other different positions on campus, but also once you're graduating and in a full-time position. This can also help you develop certain passions or interests. So if you are somebody who's going into health science and really maybe want to be a personal trainer, maybe working at the recreation center can help you start figuring out if that's something that you want to do. If you want to work in social advocacy and be working for people and advocating for people, or the community, maybe working at the Office of Multicultural Affairs may be something if they have a student position available. So these are positions that can potentially help you further develop your personal passions or interests. And then just kind of lastly, these positions can kind of help you feel connected to the greater KU community, especially working in an office or department. There's a lot of inner workings, and you may get to learn more about the different resources that you could take advantage of as a student, and just feel a little bit more at home being here at KU.
I will also add it can potentially lead to opportunities after graduation as well. I know the person who works as the undergraduate coordinator in the physics department right now, that person was their office student assistant, and their undergraduate graduation just happened to align with the person in that role leaving. So they were able to roll right into a full-time job. So not that that would happen for everybody, but it is a way to help you build your network and develop connections that even if they can't get you a job here at KU, that would be a great person who could be a resource as a reference for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's another really great thing that I didn't think of, the network opportunities and the resources that can really help you with future career positions can be really helpful with on-campus positions. So something I kind of briefly mentioned, there's a variety of different campus resources and departments that you can potentially get a student position in that can get you a different experience around campus and just to get to experience a different side of campus that you may have not thought possible for yourself. Which is really interesting. So there's a variety of different opportunities that you can partake in on-campus student positions. Also, the hourly rates for student positions are normally well above the minimum wage in Kansas, which also helps, giving you more money for any expenses that you may be incurring or just being able to save more money overall. So yeah, so that's another nice benefit, is a little bit more money, which can be helpful. But yeah, so if you are thinking about wanting to apply for an on-campus position and want to look at what positions are being offered to students, there's a really great one-stop shop page called employment.ku.edu. If you type that in and you click the students tab, I added a screenshot of what the website looks like, and you just click the student tab right down here, and it shows you all of the student positions. If you click on like the posting title of each of the positions, it kind of provides a description of what the position entails, potentially the hourly range, and maybe the different materials that you may need to apply for the position. So like if you need a resume or cover letter. So this is kind of a really great one-stop shop to see about any and all student positions that are being offered by the university. So if you are thinking about taking an on-campus position, going to employment.ku.edu and then clicking on the student tab can be really helpful going forward.
And now during the summer is also a good time to start looking at that, because you can get an idea of what types of jobs are available. And some offices will hire before folks get to campus so that you can start on day one when classes start. So if you see anything that's posted now, it would be a good idea to go ahead and get your application submitted. Each of the postings will also list a contact person. So you can be proactive and reach out and send them an email, say, hey, I applied for this job. I'm really interested in it. Can you let me know when you'll have a decision made? So that shows initiative and connects with that person as well.
Being proactive with this can be really helpful too, especially before the semester starts, can be really great. So any questions on campus positions or where to look, or just any questions in general?
And on-campus jobs, there really is tremendous variety. You know, like Matthew said, there might be some that are in housing or some that are in food service, some that are in office settings, and they'll all sort of have different pros and cons and benefits, things like that.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities you can take advantage of to get to experience a different side of what KU is. So, which is very exciting. So kind of the last part we're going to be walking through are just some like final helpful tips and things just to, help with saving and just to be aware of, and then just some additional resources that y'all have access to as a KU student. So I kind of broke things down into like a do's and don'ts of savings. So first thing is, do plan your budget ahead. You want to make sure you're proactive with what expenses you're incurring to make sure you can, proactively be saving your money for any expenses that are coming up, but also for any unexpected expenses. Using like mobile or online banking platforms to track your spending can be really helpful to make sure you're being proactive and not overdrafting on your account. So checking that regularly can be really helpful. Different banking providers also have different cash back or rewards programs that can be helpful to know about, of like, oh, if I used my credit card on getting gas, like, oh, I can get 2% cash back on that transaction, which basically means is so if I spent like, oh gosh, I'm really bad at math right now, but if I spent like $20 on gas, I think that would give me like, I don't know if it was, it wouldn't be $2, it'd be 2 cents. Was it 2 cents?
Let's do if you spend $100.
Okay, that's probably better.
Yep, spend $100, you earn $2.
$2.
That's 2%. So you get $2 to put towards a future purchase.
Yes. And so that's kind of roughly how a cashback program might work. I know different banks. So I have Bank of America. So there's like 3% cash back on select purchases, 2% on, I think, gas and groceries, and 1% on everything else. So sometimes that can be really helpful and just, getting some cash back to your account. And then also different banks have different rewards programs of different deals that may be going on that you may want to take advantage of. Another thing that could be really helpful too is exploring campus amenities. So especially different services and departments that may be offering things, or just different resources that you can take advantage of can be really helpful. So especially like with like the bus system, if you want to take advantage of the bus system and you don't think that you may need a car on campus, I think, not having to spend money for gas, especially gas being as expensive as it has been, can be really helpful. So taking part of like the bus system can be really great of navigating around campus and just the Lawrence community. Something else that can be really helpful too is especially when I started college, is kind of limiting your meals out. I think especially it's sometimes seen as like convenient to go eat out like with friends and stuff, but sometimes it may not be financially beneficial because you're sometimes spending more for food out, going out, instead of, getting a week's worth of groceries or using your meal plan. So because you're already paying for those things or has a little bit more longevity if you're buying groceries. So making sure you're being very intentional with when you're eating out, just to make sure you're saving money, can also be really helpful too. Any other like helpful tips that you may have, like things that you should do that
So one thing I was going to add that we didn't discuss was getting the free rewards. So both Dillon's and Hy-Vee have rewards cards where you get specific discounts for purchasing your groceries there. With Dillon's, you get a discount on gas in the future if you buy your gasoline from that retailer. There are 4 different Dillon stores in Lawrence. So there's a wide variety of stores to shop at. And then, like we were saying, if you earn $2 back on $100, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it really does add up, especially on things that you're going to be buying a lot, like groceries. So just investing in those free rewards cards if you don't already have them or don't have a card that's maybe connected to your parents' account, that kind of thing. Also, Dillon's has a digital app that lets you download coupons. So everything's just already there and ready to go and downloaded. And you can also sort of do your grocery planning that way.
Yeah. Definitely to save, especially with purchasing groceries and things like that, can be really great. So next things are some don'ts you want to be aware of. So don't buy new textbooks unless you need to, don't buy a new textbook, either rent or buy used, especially because you can save a lot of money by not buying new textbooks for classes. Just make sure you're getting the correct edition from the correct author and has the correct title. And, I think that's really important, but you don't have to buy them used. You can either rent them or buy them used. You don't have to buy them new. Don't be careless with credit cards. If you have access to a credit card, be very intentional with what you're using your credit card to spend with and for. Especially credit card is not free money. When I first got my credit card, I was like, oh, wow, this is free money. It is not free money. You have to pay it back. And if you don't pay it back by the payment date, you'll be charged an interest rate to it, which is very high sometimes. So make sure you're not being careless with a credit card if you have one. Make sure if you're spending money that you are able to, on your credit card, you're able to pay off your credit card right away or within the payment date. So be very intentional with using your credit card. Don't overdraft on your checking account or your savings account. I know we've mentioned that a couple of times. You just don't want to really be, charged that overdraft fee, which sometimes can be varied. But you want to make sure you have enough money to cover any and all expenses or those unexpected expenses as well. So make sure you don't put yourself in that predicament of overdrafting your account. Something that's maybe not talked about as much is don't forget your student ID. There's a lot of places around campus. So I know for my haircut, for being a KU student, I am able to get a student discount on my haircut, which, it helps a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, it can really help. So making sure you have your student ID on you can be really helpful with saving some extra money that you may have not expected to save. So having that on you could be really great. Also, don't dismiss financial aid. Financial aid, especially with helping you with tuition and things, can be really helpful to help with your costs of schooling. So make sure you're regularly each year filling out your FAFSA to make sure you're getting that aid if you so need it. Because it can be really helpful in the grand scheme of things as well. Kind of similar with the dues, Desiree, any things that you should not do?
Yeah. So with textbooks, sometimes depending on your professor, they will have a copy that's put at the library for loan. So you wouldn't maybe necessarily want to rely on that in a course that's super important to your major, but you can also make copies and stuff of important chapters, or that might be a way to help you get through the first couple weeks until your financial aid comes in, or until you can save up money to purchase a copy yourself, something like that. Also, reach out to the professors and ask if the textbook is essential, because some textbooks might just be a nice to have versus a required, because there are worksheets and stuff in it that you have to turn in. So definitely being proactive on that, looking at the syllabi, reaching out and connecting with your professors in advance before making any big ticket purchases. Again, just highlighting that don't be careless with credit cards, because not only will you be hit with a late fee for missing a payment or being late on the payment, your interest rate will also hike. So you'll be doubly hit with that. So just being extra extra cautious there, because that is something that tends to get away from folks. And especially if you feel like you're in a corner and don't have any other choice.
Yeah. Definitely, I think a large theme that we've been passing on is being proactive. So, being proactive with your textbook, seeing if, connecting with your professor, seeing if that is something you need, or if there's one in the library that you can scan or make copies of certain textbook chapters can be really important. And then also, yeah, don't be careless with credit cards. Biggest thing, you don't want to get, double hit with like a late fee or your interest rate going up on those payments. So it can be really important.
Or if
So
you and your roommate are in the same courses and can coordinate purchasing textbooks. So if you're in the same classes and don't need to use them all, maybe one of you buys one, the other buys the other, and you share.
yeah, that can be a really great way too, especially if you're taking similar classes, can help kind of spread the expenses over people. So there are also a couple of resources on campus that you can take advantage of while you're all are here. So one is student money management. So this is a resource that can help you kind of start managing your finances throughout the semester. So this kind of helps KU students, the office helps KU students kind of improve their financial situation by kind of going through your finances, helping you kind of start learning how to make sound financial decisions, and then just being better in control of your financial lives. And so they are located in Summerfield Hall in Suite 350, which is actually where the Academic Retention Center, Academic Retention and Engagement Center is located. Their regular office hours are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Their appointments are done by request. And so I linked their website at the bottom where you can make an appointment with their office. But their appointment times are Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., either in person or in Zoom or on Zoom. To schedule an appointment, all you have to do is visit their website at money.ku.edu. And you click the services tab, and then it'll prompt you to start scheduling an appointment within their office. Any other things that you know about, Desiree, about student money management?
So, student money management is a great resource at any point in the semester. So if you want to be that proactive person who your first week wants to schedule a meeting with them, that's great. If it's coming to the midpoint in the semester and you're finding that you realize you don't have enough money to get you through to the end of the semester, something like that, that's also just as valid of a time to take advantage of that resource. So at any point, don't let your feelings of self-consciousness or embarrassment or anything like that stop you from making that appointment to utilize that resource, because it's a pretty great resource that you have access to for free.
Yeah. And, like Desiree said, these are resources are here for you at any point in the semester, like from the beginning to the middle to the end, or anytime you may need them. So definitely take advantage of them, especially if this can help you through anything that you may be going through financially. So definitely take advantage of these resources because they're here to help. So next one I wanted to plug is our center. So the Academic Retention and Engagement Center. So which is also known as the AREC. So the AREC has a variety of different initiatives that are created to support students' needs from your transition upwards to graduation. So we help and prioritize the needs of our working class students, first generation college students, and students of color. So we help develop workshops and events to help promote your academic success, professional development, and also community building. So we are also a resource here to help you at any point in the semester, and we want to make sure we can get you connected with resources that can be helpful for you with whatever you may be going through during the semester. So we also are located in Summerfield Hall, Suite 350, right next to Student Money Management. And our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you want to learn more about, that was my watch, I'm so sorry. If you want to learn more about like our office and any upcoming initiatives that we may be having, you can visit our website at engagement.ku.edu or following on social media at KU_AREC can be really helpful because we're regularly posting on there, especially during the semester about different events that we're planning or that are going on that you may want to take a part of. So definitely reach out to us if you ever have any questions or how we can help you throughout the semester. We're here to help. Um, any other information, Desiree, that I forgot to didn't cover with the AREC?
Yeah, so not that you didn't cover it at all. You definitely highlighted that we are your connection to other things on campus. So, if you're feeling intimidated or unsure about where to get help, this can be your center for getting those connections. And I will also add another one that I've recently learned about that could be helpful financially, which is student legal services. There was a student we talked to who needed help breaking a lease because of a situation outside of their control. And breaking a lease can be extremely costly, but they were able to get free help through student legal services to make that transaction happen. So not a guarantee, but there's something else to keep in mind depending on your situation. See, there's a question in the chat.
So I was reading it. And so this is from Allison. So Allison asked, is there a department that helps you get a job, like create a resume or practice for interviews? And so there is one that you'll have access to. It's called the University Career Center. So I know I mentioned I'm a graduate intern in this office, but I also work at the University Career Center. And so the University Career Center is able to help you with job search information, resume reviews and resume preparation, looking at like what a resume looks like, how to tailor a resume, and also they help with mock interviews with a whole plethora of other resources that you can take advantage of through the University Career Center. But there is an office that can help you with that.
Absolutely. And sometimes you might see our office partnering with the Career Center or other offices, and it's for reasons like that to help our students get connected to other offices that they might not naturally see that connection to get that assistance.
Yeah. So that was a really great question. Thank you. So actually that kind of ties into my next thing. That's kind of the end of the presentation. Do y'all have any questions whatsoever about any of the information we've talked about, or any questions that may be on y'all's mind? Feel free to enter them in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, you can always unmute yourself.
I will also go ahead and say while you're thinking if you have any questions. So next week, we will not be holding a student session because next week is one of the parent sessions. So if your parents have any questions, please be sure to let them know about that upcoming parent session. And then the week after that is 4th of July. So we will not be holding any sessions that week because we're taking some time to relax and decompress ourselves, which hopefully y'all are going to get some time to do that as well. So the next student session that will happen is July 13th. So you've got a little bit of a break, but that one is going to be talking about building your campus community and what that could look like in a variety of different ways.
Thank you for the updates, Desiree. Any questions at all?
And if not, that's okay. These things can take time to process. So if you have a question, you're also welcome to email or contact us about that later. And
I listed our email below. So if you have any questions too, especially too is with this information, granted, it's a little heavy, a lot of information all at once too. So especially too is if there's anything at all through the future, you can always, email us at arec@ku.edu.
And yes, Trinae, I think, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, asking about the options program. The early move-in date is the 15th. If you haven't received any information about that just yet, you should be getting something either this week or next week from our associate director, Anise Richards, or it might be coming from the AREC's email account. So be sure to check your spam or your junk mail if you haven't seen anything on that. You can also email us if you think you should have received a communication but haven't. Yeah, sorry. Absolutely can. Yes, the early move-in date is the 15th. So if for some reason you haven't gotten a communication yet, you should be getting something from Anise Richard, our associate director, either this week or next week, or the email might be coming from our general AREC inbox. So if you think, if you're sure you've registered for options and you think you should have gotten a communication, but you haven't gotten it yet, just be sure to send us an email and connect with us just to let us know that we want to make sure you're registered. But yes, the 15th is currently the early move-in date.
Well, I think that's pretty much it that we have. If there's any more questions, especially with this information, feel free to email us at arec@ku.edu